Shouldn't we be concentrating on the ferry?
Well, yeah, it's likely that our guy cased the ferry first, but we don't know when. We don't even know what he looks like. I mean, we could stare him right in the face and not know it's him. But we will notice a change, even a small change in her life.
Look at that thing, 60 years ago. Wait a minute. Cubs won World Series. Against Miami?
Yeah, it's something, huh? Who would have thought? 100 to 1 shot.
If I retreat, I may be hurt, I may be killed. I must hold my own if I'm going to stay within this land. For once there is weakness, they will exploit it, they will take me out, they will decapitate me, they will chop me into bits and pieces. I'm dead.
That was back during my violent years. I admit it. We're going through all of our old intros.
It's a kinder, gentler Cinemaniac.
It is, I think, at this point. I think so, you know.
That's funny, because personally, I'm Mark.
And I'm still Tom.
And we are still the
Cinemaniacs.
So we're setting a contemporary Cinemaniacs record.
Yes.
Because this is 2 new episodes 2 weeks in a row.
That's the first time for many things.
Maybe for the year. That could possibly be the first time so far this year.
Tune in next week.
Yeah,
to see if we can top ourselves.
Unless one of us gets, diphtheria or the shingles or something.
Well, what my religion has to do with that, I don't know.
So we have a little bit more.
We got some
wiggle
time to
room
talk
this time.
and breathe and everything. I understand you've been doing a little extracurricular, not even cinemaniacal purchasing, but cinemaniacal acquiring.
Yes.
Shall we say?
Well, this is funny. So, the last 2 shows ago, you tried to get me to talk about this, and I intentionally didn't. And this is what a despicable person I am.
Yes.
So, reel-to-reel video. We love Video Headquarters, our sponsor, but reel-to-reel video is in Walpole, New Hampshire. They're an independent video store, one of the few, I was going to say independent, one of the few video stores, period, that are left. They've been around since '85, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And I grew up in Claremont, and we had our share of video stores. But back then, every video store had different stuff. And if you were a young Cinemaniac, you would exhaust all the video stores in your town, and if you were somewhere else, you'd be jealous that you couldn't rent from there. Well, my best friend's father was a traveling salesman, insert jokes here, and he would rent things that he knew we liked from reel-to-reel video and take it back and forth between Walpole and Claremont for us. So that's the backstory. Told you that story to tell you this one. I found out that reel-to-reel, which has been open since '85, was getting rid of all their VHS tapes. VHS tapes, poo-poo, why would you want those?
Right, exactly.
Because a lot of things still only exist on VHS. And they're free. So this video store, which is gigantic, held on to VHS. They never got rid of anything unless maybe they upgraded to DVD until 2014, which is insane. So I found out they were getting rid of it all for free. And they were putting 1 section out a day, or as they were going through category by category. So every day for a week, I was taking a little time from the middle of my day and going to Walpole and filling my car with VHS tapes. So we actually have a photo of all of the tapes that I acquired over the course of a week of getting that.
Jeez.
So that is
You're your own video store at this point.
Yeah, we joked about that. A portion of reel-to-reel lives on in my house. So yeah, that is. I've been thinking about what kind of furniture I could make out of that, and what kind of a VHS fort I can make out of that. That is currently approximately 50% of my living room floor.
So your assignment now, if you decide to accept it, is to watch all of those by next week.
By next week?
And report to us.
Well, I actually thought about that. That could be a recurring segment of the show if we had time.
This week you picked up
I can
this
bring
week?
in whatever I've watched this week.
Sure.
Because a lot of the stuff is stuff that is incredibly hard to find, never been on DVD or Blu-ray or Netflix. Things that I remember seeing on cable as a kid, things I've always been curious about. And so there's the VHS story of the week. There's my mania. And the terrible person I am, I didn't want to talk about it until they were done putting it all out because I didn't want competition.
Didn't want to give the viewers an opportunity, right?
So sorry about that. So anyway, if you choose to go to reel-to-reel video, I'm sure they still have more left, but it's all the junk that I didn't want.
Just not the good stuff.
So how about you?
Well, not really. I've just been kind of sitting around doing a whole lot of nothing. Picked up my son, who he's been touring graduate school. So, but relative to film and video, it was kind of slow, which is why we've been able to chat a little bit. Only one thing opening in the theaters, as you know.
Yes.
Shall we move along to that?
Oh, I think that's what they're here for.
Well, that's why they should be, and we thank our friends over at Keene Cinemas. Everybody over there always helps us out, and they helped us out this week by letting us find out what you do if you're a race car enthusiast, you love building them, but man, the family business is just you're in arrears, and so you've got to find some way to pay the bucks. Aren't you going to join forces with your evil nemesis and then eventually get essentially kind of framed for somebody's murder? Doesn't it always work out that way? And when you get out and you've got to find a way to even the score, you definitely have a need for speed. Okay, lots to say about this.
We got like 40 minutes we can go on this one.
And we'll probably spend that. Oh, excuse me.
You choked up about it.
I was that choked up at my, while again I didn't spend any money. I did waste a couple hours watching this thing. I was struck about halfway through, and then it eventually came true how I couldn't imagine how you could make a racing movie that's both stupid and boring. All of this stuff, I was thinking maybe beforehand, maybe I'll be a traitor and go to an IMAX theater. It's not an IMAX. We did wait and to see it in 3D. No reason to wait to see it in 3D. This is just poorly shot. You recognize a couple of the actors maybe, but most of the main characters, it's so two-dimensional, no pun intended. The story is so two-dimensional. The setup is just stupid. This guy, our hero, gets framed for the murder of his little friend and colleague by the bad guy. And I'm not even going to do spoiler alerts because this deserves to be spoiled, I think, in many respects.
Yeah.
Our main bad guy. And initially, I was thinking this might be kind of interesting because they clearly had a rivalry, but they put it aside so that they could kind of work together. And I never got a sense that our bad guy was really a bad guy at heart, even when we find out that he kills.
See, I thought he was ridiculously lack of facial hair, but mustache
right, the mustachio
twirling
guy. It felt kind of like that, and that's just bad performance. But yeah, so anyway, so he does end up killing because he gets behind our good guy's buddy.
He ends up killing the guy who, from the moment he appeared on screen, I'm like,
that guy's
going to die.
Yeah, red shirt right there.
He's going to die, and he's going to inspire our hero to avenge him and do something.
And so you'd already
from the moment I saw the guy,
right,
and I didn't know anything about this movie going into it.
I knew a little bit about it, so you could definitely see that. But then, so he sneaks underneath and taps the guy, and the guy flips, and he dies. And I guess the 50 cars because they're doing this race. It's obviously they're driving and they're running other people off the road. Nobody else on the car happened to notice that there was a third red car because they get to the end, and the way our bad guy is able to frame our good guy is that he said, "Oh, I was never there. There were just two cars, and it was all you." So I guess all of these people who run off the road never recognized this bright red car. The police, after searking for it,
bright red exotic car that you've never seen in real life before.
Lamborghini or something like that, I think it was. And they never bother going to the garage and looking under the tarp. Oh, look, there's a red car. It's so stupid. Every step of the way, it's just stupid. The action sequences are boring. I was thinking, wow, this could be great. No big 3D, and they just shoot it wrong.
Because when you shoot it in 3D, it forces you to calm down with the damn editing and to give people a chance to take things in, or else the 3D effect doesn't work.
Right.
But then occasionally you say, screw that. Screw the viewer. Sorry, you were saying?
No, and the rest of it, it's so methodical, and I took my 13-year-old along. I made the mistake, not kind of the mistake, because I try to be quiet, and all you people who talk during the movies, you know what I think of you. But I made the mistake of sitting back about halfway through and going, at about this level, man, this is really dumb. And my son overheard and he said, yeah, it really is. And so even he thought it was stupid. Plus, all you 13-year-olds out there, it has kissing too. So watch out. So a complete waste of time.
Kissing, dumb is okay. Kissing's the deal breaker.
Boring is okay, but no kiss. Dumb, boring, and kissing? What?
While I was watching this cinematic holocaust of car movie, I came up with a 7-character, get a little visual aid here. I have a 7-character review of this movie.
Yes, for Need for Speed?
There you go.
Whatever could you do?
Nothing, just that's one for the teens.
Okay.
I love car movies.
Sure.
And for some reason, I was foolish enough to have hope that in 2014 I could see a car movie that was good.
Well, maybe you still can. But.
Because I don't like the Fast and the Furious movies. Everybody loves them, but I think they're not good. I grew up with what I think of as the good old boy car movies.
Yep.
Movies that were fun and made you laugh and you liked everybody in it.
How many of them came up as we're watching this?
Exactly. And I'll get to that.
Yes,
we
I'm
have time.
sure.
And this is of the modern era of everybody's aggressive and everybody's trying to be tougher than the next guy, and it's all scowly, and it's about revenge and vendettas and who's tougher and badasser than the next guy. And I'm like, you're all a bunch of stooges. It's all a bunch of male models posturing. You know, nobody over 30 in this movie unless they're some prune-faced authority
Most
figure.
look like they're about 16.
Or unless you're Michael Keaton as Cleavon Little in Vanishing Point. Oh yeah, and by the way, this may be wrong. They may want to defend themselves by saying the people who made this may say, oh, we were paying homage to our favorite car movies.
That just means copying.
What I felt was somebody said, oh, I have to write a car movie. Let me go online to Wikipedia and find a list of the 10 greatest car movies, and then I'll kind of fast forward through those and copy everything I remember about them.
Copy.
Because this damn movie is nothing if it is not every car movie that I love done not as good. I mean, you've got, again, Michael Keaton as the Cleavon Little character in Vanishing Point, but far less eloquent or interesting. You've got Smokey and the Bandit / Dirty Mary Crazy Larry down to having a British blonde girl as the girl who's in the car. You've got our hero gets away from some police by doing the exact same thing somebody does to a cop car in American Graffiti. I mean, you could make a game out of this.
Right.
Like, I wish I had a pause button so I could pause it and go, it's that movie. Well, it's that movie.
You can make a game out of it, actually. And that's where, just to interrupt.
Yeah, please.
One of the things that I found really kind of reprehensible about this, and it's similar in vein to, we reviewed a film that was earlier at your behest that was actually kind of a documentary on the actual Cannonball Run.
32 hours, 7 minutes.
Right. And
I would highly recommend that.
I would highly recommend that over this, because you had characters that you were interested in. And
it was exciting. It was well shot.
The thing that I have to defend this movie in some respects because it is based on an extremely popular video game, a video game that I play all the time and love. But I found myself sitting here watching a movie where they're real people, and they're real people truly endangering innocent bystanders. While we don't actually see it happen, I have to figure some of these police officers are killed as a result of this stuff. One guy across from me, our characters are racing and trying to get away from the police at one bit, and a cop goes flying up beside and spins over and is about to crash, and he literally applauded. Yeah! I found the devil may care attitude and the fact that our characters are truly, killing people. The police at one point set up a bit where they put a weight, actually a billy club, on the accelerator so that the car will burst out. So first of all, destroying a police car, and you're going to kill these people. It was just wanton, and I accept it because it's trying to be the video game, and that's very much what the video game does. But when you really bring it to the screen like this, I think it's irresponsible filmmaking in that respect. So I dislike that. And then also, there's so much more to... I interrupted you, but that just came to mind when you're talking about it being the game.
No,
I don't get it.
I don't expect much from a movie based on a video game, okay? And honestly, I said to people going into this doesn't even have to be a good movie. It just has to have good car action.
Absolutely.
Because that's what I crave.
Yeah.
I mean, fan of the T-shirt that I'm wearing, which is why I wore it, happens to be St. Patrick's Day in green. That was a lucky accident. It just has to be fun with good action, And the action was horrendous in this. You give them points for doing... Almost all of the stunts looked like it was actual cars with actual stuntmen, which is hardly ever done anymore. Most of the Fast and the Furious movies tend to be cartoon cars, which is real thrilling. But again, it is completely shot and edited wrong. What is the most exciting thing to see during a car chase? An extreme close-up of the driver's face, shaky, right? That's what I want to see. When cars are doing amazing stunts, I want to see the look on the driver's face.
Right.
No. I want to see a shaky POV shot from the back seat through the windshield. Because when a car is corkscrewing on fire over a church, the most exciting thing to see is what it looks like through the windshield, right? And I know the reason they did that is because the video game is a first-person driver thing, and they're trying to emulate that look. But it's not exciting. Right. So often something interesting is happening and you're seeing like the camera pointed at the fender of the car rather than what's going on. And it's like, do these people understand that what is exciting about a movie is seeing things happen? Right. I always say it's the equivalent of a magician with an empty hat. He says, watch this, and then he turns around, and he turns back around, and he's got a rabbit in a hat. And it's like, no. That doesn't count. I'm not going to take your word for it that you did something amazing. And so many action movies are doing that. They're not showing you something amazing. They're doing all this sleight of hand and legerdemain and prestidigitation and philately.
That's easy for you to say.
I try, tongue exercises. And people are buying it and going, yeah, this is amazing. And I'm like, you're all fools. You're all idiots. So I was so angry when I saw this movie. I drove angry all the way home.
Well, and there's another great movie you should watch
I barely
instead.
avoided a hit and run. Luckily, I was away from the police's vanishing point. So it's nobody will listen to you. Everybody wants to see the new crap, and everybody thinks it's fine.
Right.
Seriously, Vanishing Point.
Oh, God,
Dirty
yeah.
Mary,
How
Crazy
many?
Larry, Cannonball Run, Grand Theft Auto, Eat My Dust, Smokey and the Bandit.
Right.
All these movies are infinitely better than this piece of horse pucky that is in the theater this week.
The thing, and again, is it fair to hold this film up to these criteria?
It is when this film is referencing them every 2 seconds.
Right. The thing that they're, and this isn't giving anything away, it's this big secret. Michael Keaton is the Cleavon Little character who is organizing this now over the internet, kind of mysterious, where's it all going to be held? Only a few people get invited to this
illegal
race in California. Nobody knows where it is. Apparently, except for all of the Chicago Highway Interstate Police.
And he's constantly broadcasting all this on the internet.
Yeah,
so that's a
they're
great
all
way
right
to have
there.
an illegal race.
Right, and why isn't he being arrested for all of this? The big prize at the end, and this is one of the ways our hero has built this just unbelievable great car that's never been seen.
But so looks exactly like a contemporary
Right, it looks like
Mustang.
something the Charlie's Angels would drive. And so it gets destroyed right at the beginning. So he has to he steals another one. The winner of this invitational race gets all of the other cars. Well, what I don't understand is all of the other cars are totally destroyed at the end of the race. What's the point?
Yeah.
Every single moment of even potential logic and storyline just gets thrown out the window, and it's just really just nothing good to say about this thing. Maybe a 1. There were a couple of decent shots and some interesting moments.
And in focus
it was in
most
color
of the time.
and in focus.
How many times during this movie somebody says something, and I could say out loud if I was rude, this is exactly what's going to happen 30 minutes from now,
Right,
and
yeah.
then it would happen.
Oh, yeah.
It was so bad.
Plan
and then
payoff,
when you
payoff.
get to the final race, it is the most boring kind of race. You think,
Sure
it's
is.
this open track, it's the open road, it's people can do all kinds of crazy stuff, but it's like NASCAR, where it's like 6 cars within 6 inches of each other, just constantly just jockeying for position. And like that's real thrilling.
Well, even my 13-year-old says, "Who builds an illegal racetrack where the end of it is at the end of a peninsula and you can't escape? That makes no sense." The whole thing was just like, what am I watching?
Oh my
So
God!
wow, yeah.
I still am angry because I love car movies, and it's like Hollywood is like, oh no, we'll give you a car movie. Here you go, it's a car movie, and it's like, no, it's a pile of poo. I want a nice car movie. So
anyway,
sorry, folks.
there'll be better things next week.
Yes,
And we'll tell you about them.
next week is Divergent.
Divergent, yeah, big one. Everybody's waiting for that.
That
I
looks
don't know,
real
but-
original. And Muppets Most Wanted.
Yep.
So
Which I think looks like fun, actually,
it does
strangely
look like
enough.
fun.
So hopefully we'll have better things to discuss and talk about.
So despite our ranting and raving, we
do
thank our
thank them.
friends at Keene
We
Cinemas.
do, absolutely.
Because it was outstanding picture and sound quality for that film that I saw.
There you
So,
go.
At the very least, like I said, it was in focus. Now, on to video.
Yes.
We thank our friends at Video Headquarters
We do.
for the titles, all but one of the titles that you are about to receive from our blabbermouths. First up, what do you do when a bitter old woman who holds the ownership to a very desired book title won't sell it to you so you can make a movie that turns out to be a classic for generations? Well, you do the best you can, and if you're lucky, you will be saving Mr. Banks.
And we're back.
Yikes.
Power short, very brief power shortage.
And cut to black.
Yes.
So this is based on the actual story of how Walt Disney was able to secure the rights for Mary Poppins to become a modern movie classic. Despite what the advertising campaign is and what the trailers and TV ads are, this is much more about the life of the Mary Poppins author P.L. Travers as a child in Australia.
And certainly much less of a comedy than I think
Much
it
less of a
appears to
comedy.
be.
This is, I would call this predominantly a drama.
Yep.
It's mostly about her childhood told in flashback while she's in California trying to be wooed by the Walt Disney Company. So a lot of people go to this film thinking, ooh, this is going to be the not wacky, but interesting story of how Mary Poppins came to be.
Right.
And to a degree it is, but to far less of a degree than a lot of us, I think, wished it was.
Right.
I thought they could have spent a lot less time on the P.L. Travers childhood story and more on making Mary Poppins. For me. To me, a little of it went a long way. Like it felt really repetitive with, like, we get it. Her father was an alcoholic and he had issues and blah, blah, blah. To me, the most interesting stuff this is what you said the first time we watched this. The most interesting thing in this is you see them during the film recording these sessions, these story conferences, and during the end credits of this film, you see a tape recorder and you hear the actual recordings, highlights from that, and that was just fascinating. I think this film means a whole lot more if you've seen Mary Poppins. I think if you're not familiar with Mary Poppins or you've never seen it, this is going to lose a lot. The glory of this being on video is you can go out and you can rent both. And I would highly recommend watching Mary Poppins before you watch this movie.
Oh, yeah.
And then maybe watching Mary Poppins again. Because throughout the movie, P.L. Travers is just kind of this sour crone. And after a while, the film tries to build sympathy for her, to tell you why she's that way. But ultimately, you're like, this is just kind of a nasty lady and whatever. Tom Hanks is fine as Walt Disney. I don't know if it's a great impersonation, but he's a nice character in the film.
Okay.
And overall, it's pleasant because I enjoy the look of the era that this takes place in. Everything's very clean and neat architecture and thin, clean lines. You know. So overall, I thought this was a decent movie, but I didn't think this was a great movie.
I like this a little bit more on video. Again, I always try to compare the two. I expect more going out to the theater. It's a bigger venue, and so I expect it to be better, essentially. A couple of films that we're going to talk about today, I liked more on the home video, the smaller.
This isn't terribly cinematic. The Australian scenes are, but the rest of it really isn't.
Right. But as you say, and the same things that I felt earlier, I'm a little more sympathetic to the Travers character. I have difficulty disliking her as much as I think I should. Not that the film tells me that I should, but she's so unpleasant and really kind of despicable. But it's Emma Thompson, and I just love Emma Thompson. And so I think this film might have been more effective with different casting. I didn't buy Hanks as Disney. Hanks is so recognizable.
He's become like a John Wayne. You're looking at Tom Hanks no matter what the character is.
Right, no matter what the character is, and that's until you get to Captain Phillips, which I lost him in that. But he didn't sell me as Disney. Disney was much more laid back and is still an icon of his own era, at least for me, because I grew up with him in many respects. But Hanks didn't buy it for me, and Thompson, I had problems disliking the character as much as I really thought emotionally I was supposed to because it was Emma Thompson. But still, in the long run, it took me 2/3 of the film to stop saying, yeah, you had daddy issues, get over it. And that's ultimately what the film says, and that's ultimately what Disney eventually says. Get over it, we all have problems, and this film can help people with that. So I think I was misled going into it about how much of a biopic it was going to be about Travers' life. And also, and this is probably selfish in both of our regards, but because we're so into film and production and all that, I sure would have liked to have seen much more about how it was made.
That's what I wonder. Would somebody who's not a movie person care about this? Because I always personally believe that the general audience does not want to watch a movie about making a movie. They just want to watch a movie. It's like I don't want to read a book about a guy who's trying to write a book or listen to a song about a guy who's trying to think of words for a song. So it'll be curious to see how this lives its life on video, and if it catches on, or if this becomes another just one for the film fans.
I think also that in your comment about needing to have seen, or that you really should have seen the film Mary Poppins before this, I think that's absolutely true for anyone. But I think for the people who it's really a cherished classic. We grew up with it, and it means a lot to us. Again, I keep bringing up my younger son, but he's seen it, but it's not the classic Mary Poppins of his youth that it is for me. And so I think for us, it's going to mean a little bit more, too, and be a little bit more interesting. In the long run, I was certainly disappointed with it in the theaters. I liked it a little bit more, maybe accepted a little bit more of its flaws here, but still, I'm not thinking it's any great shakes. Well, if you need shakes, you can chill down or chill up or whatever to the case where what are you going to do when your kingdom is attacked by evil beings and you have to join up with a whole cadre of wild creatures, especially a rather, in my opinion, kind of nefarious looking but nice enough, I guess, snowman. He really bothers me. But you're in big trouble and you have to do something when your kingdom turns out to be frozen.
Oh, so it's a kid's movie.
Yeah, there we go.
I couldn't figure it out until he said something about the rectum at the end. It damn near killed him. I wasn't that big a fan of this. I actually didn't have time to rewatch it this weekend because I was in the theater watching Elvis movies yesterday, literally. So I'm not a fan of generic Disney princess stories, and I'm not a fan of Disney musicals or Broadway type singing.
Right.
And that's what you get with this. So I think this fits right in line by design with the classic Disney musicals like, Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast and things like that. And it's that same style of song and singing.
Right.
But don't listen to me. What do I know? This movie is huge. It's still in the theater.
Is. Yeah.
It's won multiple Oscars, maybe every Oscar that it was up for, and people love it. Love it,
Right.
love it, love it. I just didn't find it that interesting. Initially, I thought it was cool. This is based on Hans Christian Andersen's The
Right.
Snow Queen, I believe.
I think
something
so.
like that. And initially, you see that as a little girl, this girl can touch anything and make it turn to ice, or she can do that. And I flash back to Saturday morning cartoons when I was a kid, and Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends,
Right.
and Iceman doing
Iceman.
that. And I'm like, oh, this is like an Iceman movie. But then it turned into this princess stuff, and I kind of tuned out a little bit.
Right.
So I didn't really like it. This is the kind of movie that I fear I'm going to get when we go to see a kids movie, in that it's about princesses and which cute boy will he love me, and singing songs about longing and all that.
Right.
So wasn't for me, but I think I'm maybe one of the few people who isn't in love with this film.
Well, then two of them are in the room because
maybe.
I wasn't crazy about this in the theaters. I liked it more on video. In the theater, the snowman really freaked me out. There's certain kinds of animation that bother me, and the way they move and stuff like that. The snowman really kind of flipped me out a little bit. I'm more accepting of him probably because I know what he's all about.
We have to coin a phrase for animated snowman phobia.
Right, we'll figure that out. Movies at CheshireTV.org, if you can think of that. But my real issue with this is, and the animation is wonderful as it always should be, and was that they're not really memorable characters. I don't know how much.
No, they felt very generic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think back to some of the, the really spectacular, truly classic, the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Bambi, those kinds of things. And then even to, The Little Mermaid, which I thought was wonderful. Beauty and the Beast. For me, Beauty and the Beast started getting to be where they're really kind of stretching it, taking sort of a pretty, not low-level storyline, but making a feature film out of it. And this one just felt like, let's take some generic characters, let's throw some songs in, and the kids will like it. Somebody sure loves it because it's, as you said, you can still go to Keene Cinemas and watch it over with our friends there, or you can pick it up tomorrow and rent it at Video Headquarters, either one. It's doing really, really well. I certainly can't bash anything that's perfectly good for the whole family. That's a good thing you can take your kids to see, but I expect more from Disney. I expect something maybe more meaningful and a little less generic. So wasn't crazy about Frozen. Sorry, I'm a stick in the mud, I guess.
I will add one final point on that, because I personally just like to have the last word on everything. The Blu-ray/DVD has the animated short film that was Oscar nominated, that played in theaters with that. And I love. One of the things I like about contemporary animated kids movies is that they often will do that. They'll have a little short like the old days. And it was really cool to see that short in 3D. Probably lose a little impact in 2D at home.
Right.
But it was neat. So it's one of those things where if you rent that, about a horse, I can't remember what it's called.
Right.
Something about a horse, sorry. It's worth watching because it was kind of cute. And it plays with classic Disney.
Sure.
So speaking of classic fun for the whole family, what do you do when you're involved in a major late 70s, early 80s governmental scam? Well, you put on your fancy duds, you crank up the rockin' tunes, and you boogie on down to an American Hustle. Can you say that before 10 o'clock?
We just did, or at least he just did.
Matzo balls.
Yes.
Matzo, not Lotso. So I did not rewatch this for video because I was busy. If I mentioned this, watching Elvis movies in the theater, and I didn't really love this movie that much.
Okay.
I went into it not knowing anything, and it really felt like somebody trying to do Scorsese.
Okay.
Really, it felt like trying to do Scorsese, but not knowing how to do it correctly. Like all the ingredients are there, but the combination is wrong.
Okay.
Like you've got Christian Bale kind of doing De Niro. You actually have De Niro in the movie, which is a surprise.
Yep, that was funny.
It looks really good. The music is really good, though it doesn't have that Zeppelin song in it, unfortunately. But a lot of the time, it felt like people playing dress up to me. Like everybody was talking about Jennifer Lawrence's performance, and to me, it felt like she was doing like an SNL sketch. Like it was a caricature of like a New Jersey housewife.
Right.
And it's about the ab scandal that happened in New York, New Jersey in the late 70s, early 80s, which I didn't know much about. I lived too young to really pay attention back then.
Okay.
And in this movie, what exactly was going on was not clear enough to me.
Right.
Like I get confused as to what was going on. And I've heard since I saw the movie that this was supposed to be a comedy, like it's called a comedy. I thought that there were funny moments in it, like any drama has, but it didn't strike me as a comedy by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
Maybe if I watched it again, it might. So I thought it was it was okay and interesting, but so much of it the dialogue felt improvised. Like I'd be in the middle of a scene and I'm like, where is this going? This is just kind of walking in circles. So it felt really loose and it didn't come together for me.
Okay.
And not that has anything to do with the other thing, but I saw Wolf of Wall Street within a week of when I saw this.
Right.
And I was like, oh yeah, this is how you do a Scorsese movie. You get Scorsese to do it.
To do it.
So next week we're going to be talking about Wolf of Wall Street.
Yep.
And they're actually incredibly similar movies structurally. So it'll be interesting to talk about all of that once we see Wolf of Wall Street.
Right. In doing the comparisons with the two, Wolf of Wall Street, unbelievable glitz and glamour and super high quality imagery. This one, almost exactly the opposite, almost an intentional, low budget attempt look. Huge stars, and I loved almost all of the performances. But yeah, this one almost looked like it was shot in the early '80s, the same kind of film stock, and I think that might have been intentional.
I think they were trying to do a golden era of '70s cinema kind of thing.
Right, and so it took me about an hour to get into the story. I mean, I lived during the Abs Cameron. Well, I was aware of it certainly, and know what it was about. It was about an hour into it when I realized, oh yeah, that's what this is really about.
Right.
The whole first hour was setting up all of these characters, and I didn't mind that. I found that kind of interesting, but it really didn't seem to go anywhere. It did seem to meander quite a bit. I liked this more on home video because again, it has a smaller feel. I didn't think this had any business being nominated for Best Picture.
Not by a long shot.
Because it didn't have the scope that a lot of these others did. Again, the Academy nominating 10 movies for Best Picture, that's purely for box office extras and bonuses. I wish the Academy would get the guts, not that they've ever asked me. But for them to kind of just decide, we didn't think anything was all that great this year, we're not going to have a Best Picture.
Right.
That's going to go over well at the box office. But I liked Hustle slightly more on home video. I still think it's worth the rental. I really... as bad as a personal rep as he's gotten, and he gets, and I think deservedly so, is my understanding, I'm really learning to like Christian Bale. I think he's a wonderful actor, and I really liked him in this. He had some range going for it. Jennifer Lawrence has a scene at one moment where there's like a 5-second moment, and it's not just that, but where it's like the total synthesis of acting in her eyes, and so there are these glimpses of brilliance in the film. I just didn't think it all pulled together terribly well. If you like the actors, and I think it's a performance-driven film, I think it's very much worth a rental, but certainly not Best Picture buzz.
Speaking of Best Picture buzz.
Speaking of Best Picture buzz, and if you're looking to grab yourself an Oscar, maybe you should just get stuck in a jail for most of your life. I guess I could say it in advance. What I think is a really interesting and well-informative and shot film that tells you what it's like when you're Nelson Mandela, and if you're going to get off and out of prison, you're going to have a long walk to freedom. So I was really not looking forward to this. I was so worried, and this says bad things about me, but message movie, preachy message movie, and all this kind of stuff. And holy cow, what a powerful, well-made film that brings, and I lived through this, and what a sad commentary either about my awareness or about how the news media covers things, about what this man went through. And what an amazing symbol he was for humanity. I just thought The Long Walk to Freedom was just a terrific film that everybody should see, and I'm going to buy it tomorrow.
I felt exactly the same way. I was a kid when a lot of this was going on, and it was like, bad things in South Africa, yeah, that's really far away, and what cartoon's on? And then I get a little older, and it's like, Nelson Mandela, he's in jail, he's an important guy, and I'm like, that's terrible, but that's really far away, and what's on video this week?
Right.
And it's really sad to say, but until I watched this movie, I really didn't know the whole story. I mean, I knew pretty good broad strokes of the story.
Right.
Because, once he died, there was a lot of review
But
of his
the
life.
lengths to which the things he endured and all the stuff that was going on politically and throughout the world while this man's just wasting away.
And the fact that you want to say this would be a good double feature with 12 Years a Slave, and not for obvious reasons, but it's like 12 Years a Slave, yes, our society at one point was part of the country was like this, and it's insane, but it was real. And then you go to this and you say, oh yeah, this country
Look what happened
was
a decade
like this,
ago.
and it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
And the minority in a country was ruling over and treating like cattle the people whose country it was. I mean, I guess you could probably equate that to the Indians here, Native Americans. It's not heavy-handed, and it's presenting
performances
the facts.
are terrific,
and everybody in it is great.
Yeah,
and it's at times beautifully shot. And I had just come back, not to keep harping on Need for Speed, not to equate this movie with that one.
Yeah,
but
right.
I had come back home from Need for Speed, and I was in a really bad mood, and I was just emotionally drained. And I had to. The only time for me this weekend to watch this movie was right after that, and I'm like, great, a 2-hour and 20 or 30-minute movie about somebody wrongfully accused in the apartheid world. This is going to be a whole lot of fun. But it was great. I left. My mood was better because of this, because you knew a guy like that existed, and you hope more people like that exist. Not people who are wrongly accused, but people who are willing to fight for making the world a better place, and doing it the right way too. And it's pretty. He was an amazing guy once you see this movie. So this is something everybody should see, especially kids should know about this. And
I agree.
I would like to see us get back to a world and a culture where people live lives aspiring to be better, rather than just settling or being content that you're better than somebody else who's got it worse off than you are.
Right.
So, speaking of people who are content to be better off than somebody who has it worse off than they are, we have a new film available on iTunes now. So if you just can't wait, you could right now go and get this on iTunes. And this will be in theaters on April 4th. Steve Coogan stars as the irrefutable, irrepressible, irresponsible, and immoral TV, now regional radio host Alan Partridge, who finds himself in the middle of a siege situation that he tries to turn to his benefit in, wait for it, we got time. Alan Partridge.
Okay, so for all of the other stuff that you forced me to watch, all the In Fears and whatever, this one makes up for it.
Yeah.
We've all seen this guy. If you'd said Steve Coogan, I probably wouldn't have put the face or a film to it, but I mean, I recognize the face. You see him all
over.
He's
in the Night at the Museum movies.
Right.
Hamlet 2. He just did Philomena.
Right. Yeah, Hamlet 2, and I remember that in particular most recently. So I know the guy, and I'm thinking, man, is this guy going to be able to hold an entire film for me? And you'd given me a little bit of backstory that I'll let you fill in, but ultimately, this was uproarious, and I'm dying to look. I'm really looking forward to what you're going to fill us in on all of this backstory material that we could still see. Hop on iTunes right now and pick us up, or go to the theaters, because this was one of the funniest films I've seen in a long time.
I'm a huge fan of Steve Coogan and of this Alan Partridge character.
Right.
Okay, the deal is this. I love British comedians because they create these worlds that just live on and on for their characters. This character started out as a newscaster, sportscaster on a spoof news show back in like the 80s or early 90s. Then it became a radio series where it was like an interview series. Then he did a TV series on the BBC called Knowing Me, Knowing You with Alan Partridge, which was like a fake Tonight Show.
Right.
And it was all fake, but it was hilarious. The character arc for his character went from this huge Tonight Show type thing, something bad happens, so then he's on the radio again. Then he's demoted. So they did a series called I'm Alan Partridge, and that's him like on the skids. He did an autobiography recently called I Partridge. That's a fake autobiography, full length for this character. He did a book on tape version of it, which again plays with the medium of book on tape.
Okay.
He has done a series most recently called Mid Morning Matters, that is him demoted from being this big TV star like a Jay Leno down to hosting like a local radio station, people call-in show.
Right.
And that was Foster's, the Australian for Beer, did that in the UK on the web. And if you poke around the web, you can find these. So it's this character that has lived in various media and various forms for maybe 20 years now. And now this is a movie. So what's cool is that this doesn't, reboot the character or start him from scratch. This picks up the character from the last thing that Steve Coogan did with him. For Americans, this is an introduction to the character.
Right.
And I don't think, you didn't know the character before this, and it worked fine for you.
You fed me a little information that helped, but I don't think you need to have all that backstory. I really appreciate it.
Out of the gate, this movie is hilarious.
Yeah.
Cricket and I watched it via the way we were able to watch it through the studio, and we were laughing out loud consistently through the whole thing. And we were both sick at the time, laid up, like both of you and I were. And even sick, I was laughing my ass off, laughing my cough off. And so it's really, really funny. I don't think there's anything Americans particularly wouldn't get. I'm happy that they didn't feel the need to do a new edit at the beginning that explains who the character is. They don't do that. And they leave in some British references. British are big on name-dropping humor, like a big, long joke and it ends with the name of a town or a guy. And if you don't know that, you're just like, ooh, that was a waste of time. They leave a couple of those in, but for the most part, there isn't much of that. It's just this character who is this pompous, egotistical, always trying to get famous or get more famous or get ahead by any means necessary. So he takes this armed siege of his radio station and tries to turn it into a publicity thing for him that maybe he'll get a BBC job out of this. Maybe he'll get back on the BBC with this. And it's just hilarious how low he goes to remain in the spotlight. People will recognize Cole Meany from multiple things as the man who goes off the deep end in this film. Otherwise, it's characters and actors you might recognize if you followed Steve Coogan's stuff for a while, but otherwise it's just fresh faces. So I guess in a way that maybe makes this more real. Right. Anybody who's curious, not to give Amazon business, but there's something called the Steve Coogan collection that you can get, and it's a DVD, multiple disc DVD set of all of the Alan Partridge stuff and pretty much everything he's ever done.
Oh, really?
He has other characters that have lived these kind of lives.
Okay.
And currently, I think it's like $50 on Amazon, which is ridiculously cheap.
Yeah.
They may also, speaking of Video Headquarters, they may also have some of this stuff at Video Headquarters. So I would say, do a search for Steve Coogan, Alan Partridge.
Right.
It's all this funny. It's all amazingly funny. So, but we're supposed to be talking about this movie. Yeah, I loved this movie. I can't wait to see it again. I will buy this movie when I have the chance. If it comes to a local theater upon release, I will probably pay to see this in a theater again. Because
and again, that's going to be a couple weeks from now, the 4th.
Yeah, April 4th, Right. But on iTunes now if you can't wait. And I would say, don't wait.
Yeah, I would say don't wait too. Very funny.
So that's all we have for new business.
We had time to discuss some things.
6 minutes left.
We could spend 6 minutes slamming Need for Speed if we wanted to. But
boy, was that a piece of crap.
No, but so coming up, we've got, again, the Muppets bit, which early on I was not a big fan of the Muppets, thought they were kind of silly. I don't know if my brain has deteriorated or if they're getting rejuvenated, but I think the new Muppets looks pretty funny. And Divergent, which, again, has a huge following. It's like hugely anticipated. I know little about it, so we'll find out what's that about next week. And then on video, I'm not quite sure. Wolf of Wall Street, yeah, so quite a bit. Quite a bit about that.
If we can talk our friends at Video Headquarters into giving it to us, the new Jackie Chan Hong Kong film,
wouldn't that be nice?
Chinese Zodiac, which is the film I've been most excited about for quite a while now, other than Alan Partridge.
Right.
So
good.
Until then, I guess.
Well, happy St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, and to you too.
And to you folks.
Wearing the green.
Bagora. Yes.
I even have on green underwear.
I don't need to know
No, it
that.
wasn't originally, but. So until then, I'm Mark.
I'm Tom.
And we are the
Cinemaniacs.